Yeah. All right, let's bring up the pages.
Wind in the willows, double, fade to one.
And we want Wind in the Willows. Right. We are now up to chapter 2, The Open Road. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ratty, said the mole suddenly, one bright summer morning, if you please, I want to ask a favour. The rat, sitting on the riverbank singing a little song. He had just composed it himself, so he was very taken up with it, and would not pay proper attention to the mole or anything else. Since early morning he had been swimming in the river in company with his friends the ducks. And when the ducks stood on their heads suddenly, as ducks will, he would dive down and tickle their necks just under their chins. Can you imagine that? Going down, the ducks are under the water, and he's tickling their chins.
Yeah, like tickling.
Until they were forced to come up to the surface again in a hurry, spluttering and angry and shaking their feathers at him. For it is impossible to say quite all you feel when your head is under water. At last they implored him to go away and attend to his own affairs and leave them to mind theirs. So the rat went away and sat on the riverbank in the sun and made up a song about them, which he called Duck's Ditty.
Duck's Ditty.
Duck's Ditty, ready?
Yeah, Duck's Ditty.
All along the backwater, through the rushes tall, ducks are a-dabbling, up tails all. Ducks' tails, drakes' tails, yellow feet a-quiver, yellow bills all out of sight, busy in the river. Slushy green undergrowth, where the roach swim. Here we keep our larder, cool and full and dim. Every one for what he likes, we like to be, heads down, tails up, dabbling free. High in the blue above, swifts whirl and call. We are down a-dabbling, up tails all. Do you like that song?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's a bit of a silly song, isn't it? It's all about the ducks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I think so very much of that little song, Rat, observed the mole cautiously. He was no poet himself and didn't care who knew it, and he had a very candid nature. Come on, leave that off the floor. Come on. Sorry, everyone. George is being... You're a little bit itchy of foot today, aren't you? Come on, sit down properly.
Oh.
Nor don't the ducks neither, replied the rat cheerfully. They say, why can't you fellows be allowed to do what they like, when they like, and as they like, instead of other fellows sitting on the bank and watching them all the time and making remarks and poetry and things about them? What nonsense it all is. That's what the ducks say. So it is, said the mole with great heartiness. No, it isn't, cried the rat. Well then, it isn't then, replied the mole soothingly. But what I want to ask you was, won't you take me to call on Mr. Toad? I've heard so much about him, and I do want to make his acquaintance. Well, why, certainly, said the good-natured rat, jumping to his feet and dismissing poetry from his mind for the day. Get the boat out, and we'll paddle up there at once. It's never the wrong time to call on Toady. Early or late, he's always the same fellow, always good-tempered, always glad to see you, and always sorry when you go. He must be a very nice animal, observed the mole, as he got out the boat and took the sculls, while Rat settled himself comfortably in the stern. He is indeed the best of animals, replied the rat. So simple, so good-natured, so affectionate. Perhaps he's not very clever. We can't all be geniuses. And it may be that he is both boastful and conceited. But he's got some great qualities, has Toady. Rounding the bend in the river, they came in sight of a handsome, dignified old house, with mellowed red brick, with well-kept lawns reaching down to the water's edge. "There's Toad Hall," said Rat, "and that creek on the left, where the notice says, 'Private, no landing allowed,' leads to his boathouse, where we'll leave the boat. The stables are over there to the right. There's a banqueting hall you're looking at now. Very old, that is. Toad is rather rich, you know. And this is really one of the nicest houses in these parts, though we never admit so much to Toad." They glided up the creek, and the mole shipped his sculls as they passed the shadow of a large boathouse, where they saw many handsome boats slung up on the crossbeams or hauled up on the slip, but none in the water, and the place had an unused and deserted air. The Rat looked around him. "I understand," he said. "Boating's played out. He's tired of it and done with it. I wonder what new fad he's taken up now. Come along, let's look him up. We shall hear all about it quite soon enough." They disembarked and strolled across the gay flower-decked lawns in search of Toad, whom they presently happened upon resting in a wicker garden chair. Look, there he is. What do you think he's reading there, George?
I don't know.
We'll find out in a minute, won't we? With a preoccupied expression on his face and a large map spread out on his knees. "Hooray!" he cried, jumping up and seeing them. "This is splendid!" He shook the paws of both of them warmly, never waiting for introduction to Mole. "How kind of you!" he went on, dancing around them. "I was just going to send a boat down the river for you, Ratty, with strict orders that you were to be fetched up here at once. Whatever you are doing, I want you badly, both of you. Now, what will you take? Come inside and have something. You don't know how lucky it is you turned up just now." "Let's sit quiet a bit, Toady," said Rat, throwing himself in an easy chair, while Mole took another by the side of him and made civil remark about Toad's delightful residence. "Finest house in the whole river," cried Toad boisterously. "Or anywhere else for that matter," he could not help adding. Here the Rat nudged the Mole. Unfortunately, Toad saw him do it and turned very red. There was a moment's painful silence. Then Toad burst out laughing. "Pah! All right, Ratty," he said. "It's only my way, you know. And it's not such a very bad house, is it? You know you rather like it yourself. Now, look here. Let's be sensible. You're the very animals I need and wanted. You've got to help me. It's most important." "It's about the rowing, I suppose," said the Rat, with an innocent air. "You're getting on fairly well, though you splash a good bit. With a great deal of patience and any kind of coaching, you may—" "Oh, pooh! Boating!" interrupted the Toad in a great disgust. "Silly boyish amusements. I've given that up long ago. Sheer waste of time, and that's what it is. It makes me downright sorry to see you fellows, who ought to know better, spending all your energy in that aimless manner. Now, I've discovered the real thing, the only genuine occupation of a lifetime. I propose to devote the remainder of mine to it, and can only regret the wasted years that lie behind me, squandered in trivialities. Come with me, dear Ratty, and your amiable friend also, if he will be so good. Just as far as the stable yard, and you shall see what you shall see." What do you think they're going to see, George? What do you think that is?
A coach.
You don't, a coach? Yeah, it's a caravan. He led them away to the stable yard accordingly. The Rat followed with a most mistrustful expression, and there, drawn out of the coach house in open, he saw a gypsy caravan, shining with newness, painted a canary yellow, picked out with green and red wheels. "There you are!" cried Toad, straddling and spanning himself. "There's real life for you, embodied in that little cart. The open road, the dusty highway, the heath, the towns, cities, here today, up and off to somewhere else tomorrow. Travel, change, interest, excitement. The whole world before you, and a horizon that's always changing. And mind, this is the very finest cart of its sort that was ever built, without any exception. Come inside and look at the arrangements. Planned them myself, I did." The mole was tremendously interested and excited, and followed him eagerly up the steps into the interior of the caravan. The rat only snorted and thrust his hands deep into his pockets, remaining where he was. It was indeed very compact and comfortable. Little sleeping bunks, a little table that folded up against the wall, a cooking stove, lockers, shelves, bookshelves, a bird cage with a bird in it, and pots, pans, jugs, kettles, of every size and variety. "All complete," said the Toad triumphantly, pulling open a locker. "You see, biscuits, potted lobster, sardines, everything you could possibly want, soda water here, baccy there, letter paper, bacon, jam, cards, dominoes. You'll find," he continued, as they descended the steps again, "you'll find that nothing whatsoever has been forgotten when we make our start this afternoon." "What?" "I beg your pardon," said the rat slowly as he chewed a straw. "But did I overhear you say something about we and starts and this afternoon?" "Now, you dear good old ratty," said Toad imploringly, "don't begin talking in that stiff and sniffy sort of way. Because you know you've got to come. I can't possibly manage without you. So please consider it settled. And don't argue. It's the one thing I can't stand. You surely don't mean to stick to your dull, fusty old river all your life? And just live in a hole in the bank and boat? I want to show you the world. I'm going to make an animal of you, my boy." "I don't care," said the rat doggedly. "I'm not coming, and that's flat. And I'm going to stick to my old river and live in a hole and boat as I've always done. And what's more, Mole's going to stick to me and do it too. Aren't you, Mole?" Oh, of course I am," said the mole loyally. "I'll always stick to you, Rat. And what you say is to be has got to be. All the same, it seems as if it might have been, well, rather fun, you know," he added wistfully. Poor Mole. The life adventurous was so new a thing to him and so thrilling, and this fresh aspect of it was tempting, and he'd fallen in love at first sight to the canary-coloured cart and all its little fitments. The rat saw what was passing in his mind and wavered. He hated disappointing people, and he was fond of the mole and would do almost anything to oblige him. Toad was watching them very closely. "Come along in and we'll have some lunch," he said diplomatically, "and we'll talk it over. We needn't decide anything in a hurry, of course. I don't really care. I only want to give pleasure to you fellows. Love for others, that's my motto in life." During luncheon, which was excellent, of course, as everything at Toad Hall always was, the Toad simply let himself go. Disregarding the rat, he proceeded to play upon the inexperienced mole like a harp. Naturally, a vulnerable animal and always mastered by his imagination, he painted the prospect of a trip with the joys of the open life and the roadside in such glowing colours that the mole could hardly sit in his chair with excitement. Somehow it soon seemed to be taken for granted by all three of them that the trip was a settled thing, and the rat, though still unconvinced in his mind, allowed his good nature to override his personal objections. He could not bear to disappoint his two friends, who were already deeply in schemes and anticipations, planning out each day's separate occupation for several weeks ahead. When they were quite ready, and the now triumphant Toad led the company to the paddock to let them to capture the old grey horse, who, without having been consulted, and to his own extreme annoyance, had been told off by Toad for the dustier job in the dustier expedition. He frankly preferred the paddock and took a deal of catching. Meantime, Toad packed the lockers still tighter with necessities and hung nosebags, nets of onions, bundles of hay and baskets from the bottom of the cart. At last the horse was caught and harnessed, and they set off, all talking at once, each animal either trudging by the side of the cart or sitting on the shaft as the humour took him. It was a golden afternoon. The smell of the dust they had kicked up was rich and satisfying. Out of the thick orchards on either side, birds called and whistled to them cheerily. Good-natured wayfarers passing them gave them "good day," or stopped to say nice things about their beautiful cart, and rabbits sitting on their front doors in the hedgerow held up their forepaws and said, "Oh my! Oh my! Oh my!" Late in the evening, tired and happy, and miles from home, they drew up on a remote common, far from habitation, turned the horse loose to graze, and ate their simple supper, sitting on the grass by the side of the cart. Are you eating your supper, are you?
No.
Toad talked big about all the things he was going to do in the days to come, while stars grew fuller and larger around them, and a yellow moon appeared suddenly and silently from nowhere in particular, and came to keep them company and listen to their talk. At last they turned into their little bunks in the cart, and Toad, kicking out his legs sleepily, said, "Well, good night, you fellows. This is the real life of a gentleman. Talk about your old river." "I don't talk about my river," replied the patient rat. "You know I don't talk, Toad. But I think about it," he added pathetically in a lower tone. "I think about it all the time." So I think that's it for today. So they've just gone to sleep, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you enjoy that bit? Do you think they're going to go on quite an adventure?
Yeah.
Let's put our
Does
thing on.
anyone want to ask some questions about the story?
That's a really good suggestion, George. Shall we see if anyone has asked any questions? Let's have a look, shall we? We don't know. They may have. Let's have a look. Nothing yet. Let's see. Let's bring up this. Come on, sit back here.
Yeah.
Let's see if anyone's sent us any questions.
I'm just going to tell Mummy it's nearly playtime.
Well, we will in a second. We'll just say, oh, hang on, we got some things here. Let's see what people are saying. These are about other things. Let's have a look. Well, I'm sure someone will have some messages to say for you soon, Georgie.
Okay.
So let's say goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
See
you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. What was your favourite bit of today's story?
I don't want to tell them that.
You don't want to tell them that?
That's not part of the
No. Did you like the cart?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to go and live in a cart for a while
Yeah.
on the open road?
Yeah.
Would you like to go with Toadie? Or do you think he'd be a bit annoying?
Might be a bit annoying.
Who's your favourite, Toadie, Ratty, or Moley?
Ratty.
Ratty's your favourite, is he? Okay, on that. So are you going to wave goodbye?
Bye, everyone.
Bye, George. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.